Good. Speak for yourself from the crib. Presented to you by the greatest chicken sandwich in fast food history. Jason Whitlock, Marcellus Wiley on a Tuesday afternoon. All right, we have a fantastic show planned for you today. Marcellus's former mentor and teammate, Hall of Famer Bruce Smith, arguably one of the 3 or 4 greatest defensive players in NFL history. He's going to join us. We're going to pull up at his crib, have a little sit down. Terrell Davis, another Hall of Famer, the Denver Broncos great. We'll pull up with him about 40 minutes and discuss that with him. But first, we're going to go out and join our main man, TJ Houshmandzadeh, a staple of the show. And we're going to start off by talking about a quarterback that TJ knows relatively well. He worked with him this offseason, Jordan Love. And I want to start off by talking about cloning. Cloning is the way of the world, and it is certainly the way of the NFL. Last offseason, the whole rage around the NFL was, how can I find the next Sean McVay, the next Rams Super Bowl coach? Anybody that shook hands with Sean McVay was a head coaching candidate. Matt LaFleur got a job. Zach Taylor got a job. Cliff Kingsbury got a job. Everybody wanted to clone Sean McVay. Well, now this year, it's about cloning Patrick Mahomes. That's what it's about. That's why the Green Bay Packers moved up in the first round to go get Jordan Love, because they clearly, in my mind, believe Jordan Love has a chance to be the next Patrick Mahomes. Jason Lockenfor of CBS Sports wrote a recent article in the past 2 days suggesting the Packers would have been smarter to sign Andy Dalton and use their first-round pick on a position of need. That all makes sense if you haven't caught Mahomes mania. See, the problem, and I'm not blaming Jason Lockenfor for this. He doesn't do this. But the problem with a lot of the media is we're so caught up in social media, and social media baits us to always look for the negative racial angle as it relates to anything to do with the NFL. And so everybody spent this offseason complaining, Cam Newton doesn't have a job. Oh, that's racist. Oh, Jameis Winston only got a 1-year deal in New Orleans. Why isn't he a starter? That's racist. Dak Prescott's not the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. That's racist. No. If it weren't for social media, everybody would be focused on the fact that this offseason has been defined by teams looking for the next Patrick Mahomes or the next Lamar Jackson. Go look at the 2 boldest moves in this NFL draft. The Packers going up to get Jordan Love because they think he can beat Patrick Mahomes, and the Philadelphia Eagles in the second round with Carson Wentz signed to a $130 million contract. They go get Jalen Hurts because they think he can be a mini Lamar Jackson. This offseason, things are phenomenal, never have been better for the black quarterback. I think it's clear by what the Packers have done here. They think Jordan Love, in their mind, who knows if he can reach this level, but in their mind, they think he has a chance to be the next Patrick Mahomes. Marcellus, we will start there. Do you think the Packers made this move because they think this kid might be the second coming of Patrick Mahomes?
They may think that, but there's not much evidence to suggest that he is that. Let's use the Chiefs as an example, and Green Bay. The Chiefs didn't even know Patrick Mahomes was going to be Patrick Mahomes. And now Green Bay is going to try and replicate that same model and find the genius in selecting Jordan Love, who's going to be the next Patrick Mahomes, according to Jason Whitlock and maybe a few others. You think that the third-team All-Mountain West quarterback is now the next Patrick Mahomes? Woo! That's beyond 1 in a million. That's like 1 in Jason Whitlock dating Halle Berry. Like, it's really not going to happen. It's not that realistic. So, look, this is a guy who doesn't even have the same trajectory as Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes was a losing quarterback in college, but his touchdown-interception ratio vastly improved every year, and more importantly, his completion percentage got better every year. So even if he didn't have the overall team success, individually, looking at him in focus, you started to realize he was starting to pick this game up. That's not the same with Jordan Love in terms of his completion percentage, a roller coaster ride. We all know he was missing his top 3 targets and his coaching staff from the year before. But still, we don't have the evidence that supports he will be the next Patrick Mahomes. Could he be their franchise quarterback? Could he be a damn good quarterback? All those things are a yes. But Patrick Mahomes, who hasn't come into this NFL ever before, we're now going to see another one in a couple years. Give me a break.
The problem with this is this. You got to think about how Patrick Mahomes came into the league. He was going to replace Alex Smith. With all due respect to Alex Smith, he not Aaron Rodgers. And so physically, Jordan Love has the traits where he can do this, but you're replacing Aaron Rodgers or trying to replace Aaron Rodgers. They didn't know Patrick Mahomes would be this good. Him and Dan Marino, the only quarterbacks in league history in their first full year as a starter to throw for 5,000 yards. And so you're coming in behind Alex Smith. If you tell me in 1 year, is Jordan Love going to be ready to replace Aaron Rodgers? I'm going to say no, because physically it's on par. Mentally, it's not close. In 2 years, is that possible? Maybe, probably not. 3 years is more realistic. And then let's get into this. Green Bay has Devontae Adams. They don't have a Travis Kelce. They don't have a Tyreek Hill. Oh, and they don't have an Andy Reid. And so when you look at all of that, and Marcellus, you big on tangibles and intangibles, there's a lot of things missing in Green Bay that they have in Kansas City that lets that Patrick Mahomes show roll on. He has weapons around him. They don't have that in Green Bay. So in that sense, I wouldn't say Jordan Love is being set up to fail, but it's an uphill battle because you're going to be coming behind Aaron Rodgers, who's one of the best quarterbacks we've ever seen, and Mahomes didn't have that.
Okay, nothing that has been said has defeated my argument. Because do I think that Matt LaFleur and the front office of the Green Bay Packers think that Jordan Love has a chance to be a duplicate, a clone of Patrick Mahomes? Yes. That's why you go up and make this move when you have an Aaron Rodgers. The Chiefs, you're right. They had Alex Smith, who was doing a tremendous job, but he certainly isn't Aaron Rodgers and never was on that level. Aaron Rodgers, a two-time MVP. But when you go up and make a move this bold when you're sitting on Aaron Rodgers, that says you have a lot of confidence in Jordan Love and the decision you're making. It's a much more bold move than the Chiefs made on Patrick Mahomes. And yes, if you heard, we had Brett Veach, the general manager of the Chiefs, on this show. He certainly had a lot of confidence in Patrick Mahomes, and that's why they moved up to go get him at the number 10 slot in the NFL draft. So, again, I'm not predicting that the guy's going to be Patrick Mahomes. I'm suggesting that the belief system in Green Bay is that, man, this kid has a lot of the qualities. He only had 2 starters returning his senior year. His coaches left. We think this kid's a diamond in the rough. And if you look at the NFL and its history, go again, that's why I referenced Sean McVay. Do I think Matt LaFleur or Zach Taylor, are they going to do what Sean McVay did? No. But does the NFL get into a mindset where they see something successful and then they say, I want some of that? Who looks like that? Who potentially plays like that? And when I go look at the decision to go get Jordan Love in the first round and then for Philly to go out and do what they did with Jalen Hurts, it's clear to me you have this success from Mahomes and Lamar Jackson. It has inspired other teams to go out and make bold moves trying to duplicate that.
Well, it shouldn't be clear to you because this shouldn't be clear to Green Bay and their brass. Let's use them against themselves. When they went up and got Deshaun Kaiser in a trade, they went out there and traded for Deshaun Kaiser because they felt like they missed out on him in this front office. How'd that turn out? And that was after Patrick Mahomes was in the NFL. They thought that they had the next Patrick Mahomes or certainly a diamond in the rough, and Deshaun Kaiser, who flamed out. And now they're going to strike again. So this is not even their first attempt of trying to succeed Aaron Rodgers in any respect. This is this front office. And I try to always find things that can culminate to give someone a positive review. But it's hard to find it. Like TJ said, Patrick Mahomes is in company with Dan Marino because of the 5,000 yards first time starting. It's funny, Jordan Love's in company with Dan Marino, maybe not for the best reason, because he's the only other player in college football history to lead college football in interceptions and still go in the first round. Now, it worked out for Dan Marino, but really? So lightning's going to strike twice in the term of He's going to be the next Dan Marino, go from leading college in interceptions and a first rounder and have a great career. But he's also going to get lightning in the bottle again and be the next Patrick Mahomes. I think Green Bay doesn't have clear vision on this pick and this selection. I root for him. I hope for the best. But Patrick Mahomes should not be in the conversation of who he could be.
And that's the biggest problem. Jason, you're right. 100% it's a copycat league. You look at everybody's running a zone read and RPOs. They weren't doing that before. A couple teams started doing it. It looked like it worked. Oh, let's put this in our offense. Every week when you game plan, you'll play a team and, oh, this play worked against them. Oh, we're going to put this play in our playbook for this week and see if it works. Jordan Love has a physical ability. The problem is Patrick Mahomes is an anomaly, man. He's a unicorn. You don't see guys like him all the time. And so the hope that he can be Patrick Mahomes and you can possibly replace Aaron Rodgers, that's a lot of prep. Like, Patrick Mahomes is a unicorn, man. Like, he's that good. And so you can't expect anybody to come in and do what Patrick Mahomes has done because we probably won't see this again.
Well, that is what men do. They chase things beyond their means, and we have dreams, and we launch them, and we see great things. You know, I see myself, I'm Denzel Washington. Anyway, we got to keep it moving. We got a Hall of Famer coming up next. Marcellus' former mentor and teammate, one of the greatest defensive players in NFL history, Bruce Smith from his crib. Speak for yourself, presented by Popeye's Chicken. We'll be back after this.
That's my dog.
Welcome back to Speak for Yourself from the crib. Jason Whitlock, Marcellus Wiley on a Tuesday afternoon. All right, we have one of the most anticipated interviews in the show's history. Someone who mentored and tutored Marcellus Wiley. That's probably not his greatest accomplishment. I think 200 sacks, the Hall of Fame, 4 Super Bowl appearances, 2-time Defensive Player of the Year in the NFL. But Bruce, we will start there. You played 3 seasons with Marcellus Wiley. What's your fondest memory of tutoring Marcellus?
Man, every day was an experience. This young brother was such a joy to be around. After I was this seasoned veteran and trying to pass on some of this knowledge to Marcellus so he could have the opportunity to blossom and become that player he wanted to become in the National Football League. But he was like a sponge. He wanted to learn. He wanted to engage. He wanted to find out the secrets and the nuances of the art of playing the defensive end position and rushing the quarterback. So it was my honor and my pleasure to have that opportunity to spend that time with him.
You know, listening to you with that description, besides talent, work ethic, desire, drive, what separated Marcellus's level of success from yours besides those issues?
Well, he graduated from Columbia. And but look, man, he was just this ball of energy and this personality that went along with all of this energy that he had inside of him. And from the way he talked, the way he carried himself, the way he engaged with other individuals, particularly his teammates. He was always such a joy to be around and come to work that next day. And if you spent any time in our locker room, it was a comedy show every single day between the likes of Thurman Thomas and Jim Kelly and Darryl Talley. And then you add Marcellus to the big mix and Ted Washington and so many others. It was such a joy to go to work in the morning because you knew that it wasn't like going to work. You were going to be with your brothers and continuing to grow that bond that would only transfer and become stronger as you entered out into that field to go to war. So, man, it was just a fun and exciting time, even at that stage when Marcellus came, and they actually drafted him to take my job. Most people didn't know that. But, me being and understanding that everything has a shelf life, and one day it would have been my time to give it up and pass that torch on. But instead of looking at, I call him my son, as a threat, I said it's time for me to pass this knowledge on so this man can have a productive life and make all the money he possibly can and make a name for himself. So that's what this was all about.
Man, love it, man. Long story short, there's only one Bruce Smith, so he didn't have any concerns about passing on the knowledge. There was only going to be one, number 78, man. And you know how much I think of you on and off the field. I call you my football pops, man. You taught me so much. But being around you for those years and knowing how great you are, the best defensive lineman to ever live, you feel a bit underrated because you were in Buffalo rather than a large market city like New York?
Well, obviously, if I would have played in a bigger market, perhaps it might have been a different outcome and perception. But I think for the most part, people knew us for our dynamic offense. We were, particularly in the early 90s and the late 80s, we were the most prolific offensive unit at that time for about 4, 5, 6 years. We put points on the board like no other team in that period of time with that K-gun and no-huddle offense with Jim Kelly at the helm and Thurman Thomas and Andre Reed and James Lofton and Steve Tasker, just to name a few of them. And Ted Machabrota, who was the offensive coordinator when we first got started. And obviously we had a excellent backup quarterback and part coach, Frank Wright. So we had a lot of guys that were not only great athletes, they were student of the games. But just to focus on, had I played in a different city, who knows? The story might not have turned out the way it did. But the one thing that I can say is that the evolution of my game existed because I wanted to become a student of the game. I wanted to be that versatile player that not only was dominant against the run, but was dominant against the pass while playing in that 3-4 defensive scheme, which, Marcellus, it's the 3-4 defensive scheme is pretty much devised for the linebackers to make tackles, not the defensive linemen. We keep the linebackers free. I know Ted used to hate, he'd have to eat up the double team so the inside linebackers could scrape and make the tackles. But once you perfect your craft and you understand the defensive schemes and you understand where that hole is open for that split second, so you can still, in the defensive framework, you can still have your gap responsibility, but you can penetrate and get in the backfield. And that's where I think I stepped my game up and being able to be that student of the game and know when they line up in a certain formation, I knew what play was coming out. And I was able to exploit that and get into the backfield.
All right, we're going to run the K-gun offense. I'm going to shoot these at you quick. How much more would you have been celebrated if you guys had won one of those 4 Super Bowls?
Well, I think obviously it would have certainly made a huge difference. And I think the best chance we had was the first one against the New York Giants, and we lost by 1 point because of a missed field goal. But nevertheless, we still had our opportunities in that particular ball game to win that ball game. I think the coaching staff from the Giants did an excellent job of dropping 9 people and only rushing 2, and it caught us off guard, and we just didn't adjust to it very well. Okay, there's an argument I have. It feels like on a weekly basis, and you know my answer, but
All respect to the late, great Reggie White and Bruce Smith. Who's the greatest defensive end of all time? I'm waiting.
Come on. Come on. And this, again, this was in my football life story. I'm not boasting. I'm not bragging. I'm talking about film study. I'm talking about statistics. I'm talking about having to defeat the double team on a consistent basis. Reggie was in a class that most people, he was built differently. Reggie was a power rusher. He had the signature hump move. He was able to be put into a situation where he played on a defensive line with Sean Jones and Clyde Simmons, who both had over 100 sacks in their career. Played for the late, great Buddy Ryan, who was the architect of the Bear defense, which means you send more people than the offense can block. So nobody gets double teamed. And there's even a free blitzer that comes through. So having said that, Reggie Wright, dear friend, love him to death. Reggie and I had this conversation a number of times. He said, Bruce, if you had played in a 4-3 defense, no one would have ever touched you because you wouldn't have gotten double teamed to the extent that you did because you were in a 3-4. So that speaks for itself. A 3-4 versus a 4-3, that 3-4 defensive end is going to get double teamed consistently. A 4-3 defensive end has outside leverage, and he is not going to get double teamed as much.
Man, preach, brother, you preach. I've been saying that. Look, Buffalo, we both played there. It doesn't always get a good rap. Describe your relationship with the city of Buffalo.
Oh, man, I love Buffalo. I love the people in Buffalo. I love the food. I love chicken. I love the chicken wings. I love chefs. And the weather kind of grows on you as well after a while. And particularly when you're winning, the weather warms up. It feels mighty good. And the fans are just so enthusiastic, passionate. And they have such a desire to support their sports. So that's what made us want to go out and play extremely hard and make them feel proud and so forth. So it was an incredible experience for me, and I try and get back as often as I possibly can. And I've got a lot of friends there that still live in Buffalo. I had a dear friend that passed away, Larry White, who was a police officer in Buffalo. But I've got a number of friends there, and Buffalo is very fond in my heart.
Bruce, you mentioned the Football Life documentary on the NFL Network. I watched it. It was tremendous. In there, though, Steve Tasker mentioned that you and Jim Kelly did not start off with the greatest relationship. And then I watched Jim Kelly talk about you as a brother now. You guys are very, very close. Why did you guys, what happened early on, and then how did you guys become so close?
Well, I think we were two-star athletes, just young. He was the quarterback of the team, and I wasn't necessarily the quarterback on defense, but I was the first player picked in the draft. And I don't think it was anything that was tremendously contentious. I just think that in some cases, one might have taken an offense to something that was said here or there. Actually, I do remember one of the things that it was during practice, and Jim had made a statement off of the field or something, and I said, okay, I'm just going to show Jim I can have my way during practice when we start live drills and so forth. So I beat the left tackle around the corner and was kind of toying with him a little bit. And I went behind Jim and knocked the ball out of his hands, which wasn't the smartest thing to do because I could have injured our star quarterback. And then we would have been obviously in a bad situation for the season or until he came back. And we got into a little confrontation. But I think he got the point that let's keep this civil, and we'll be able to have a workable relationship. But we really started bonding together when Jim would have, after home games, he would have get together at his house in the basement. He would invite the whole team and their family over. We would go down, and man, we'd be down there to 2-3 o'clock in the morning, sometimes shooting pool, watching other football games, and just having a great time. And his mother would be upstairs, and I found out that his mother had emphysema, which my father was suffering from at the time. So I would start going up stairs and talking with Mrs. Kelly, and I did this repeatedly, game after home game after home game after home game, and I just felt this connection with my father being here in Norfolk, Virginia, and in sitting there talking to her and understanding how she was ailing and couldn't breathe and had to walk around with the oxygen tank and so forth. And our relationship just seemed to blossom almost to the extent that his mother started calling me son as well. And that's how she thought of me, and that's how we bonded. And Jim, our relationship just kind of springboarded off of that. And I love that man to death. He's been through an awful lot with the loss of his son due to Krabbe's disease. He lost his father a number of years ago, and now him and his battle with cancer. But God bless him and his family, man. We think about him, and we cherish the relationship we have each and every day.
Bruce, I don't want to rush you, but we're running out of time, and I can't let you go without asking you about one other thing from that A Football Life documentary. It mentioned you were bullied as a kid, and I wanted to know a little details on that and what impact it had on your life.
Man, that's a great question. I'm glad you brought that up. But it taught me how to treat people and how not to treat people. It taught me a lot of lessons in life, man, because there were so many times that I came home and I just didn't know where to turn. I would cry sometimes. I would walk around depressed, and it was just a low point in my life, and trying to understand why this was happening to me. But I think the fact that sports came into my life, it started giving me that outlook and taking that timid little kid and making me more and more of a strong teenager and a young man, and giving me the discipline and things that were necessary to help me survive through the struggles of life. So it really was an important time in my life, and it would, who knows, it probably was necessary for me to go through those things, because now I look upon people as I want to treat people. I want to treat people the way that I want to be treated, and that's the way I look at it. So it was a critical time in my young childhood.
Bruce, we want to thank you for coming on the show. You don't know this, but you're mentioned virtually every day off air on the show. Pray.
That's my dog.
Pray for what?
Yes.
LeVar brings you up virtually every day.
LA.
You and Marty Schottenheimer. Thank you so much for the time. Appreciate it. All right, LeVar Arrington's just around the corner.
Appreciate it, Pop.
Speak for yourself. From the crib presented by Hyundai. Pray. Pray for what? Pray for yourself. After this. Pray for. Welcome back to Speak for Yourself from the crib. Jason Whitlock, Marcellus Wiley. Let's roll out to Pasadena and LeVar Arrington. Let's keep it moving here. Cam Newton still without a job. Everybody has plenty of advice for Cam Newton. Deion Sanders says he shouldn't be a backup quarterback. Jason Lockenborg says he'd be silly to take a backup deal for $5 to $7 million. Some people are saying, are insinuating racism and problems for Cam Newton, why he doesn't have a job. The question here is, Marcellus, is Cam Newton getting bad advice?
Oh, man. No, he's not getting bad advice. Here's the thing about this. The whole word advice is something you already know, but somebody else tells you. You think Cam Newton doesn't already know he's not a $3 million backup quarterback in his league? So I don't know what advice is out there, but his best friend, who is himself, Cam Newton's inner voice, is saying we are not taking any less than what we deserve. And it's not about what's going to be given to Cam, it's what he's already earned. And he's earned more than just being a backup quarterback. So Cam Newton in this situation is listening to himself, which is great advice, something he already knows.
Yeah, I'm going to have to disagree and say that it's a bad strategy. And I think if it's coming from advice, it's bad advice. And the reason why I say that is when we talk about him being a former MVP, which continues to be the argument and the topic of why he shouldn't be a backup, you got to keep in mind the place where he won that MVP award, he was released and let go for a quarterback that they brought in through free agency. There has to be conversations that are taking place as to why, if this man is still at an MVP level, why would Carolina allow him to leave? That's first and foremost. They did allow him to leave, which would be perceived as a lateral move to Teddy Bridgewater. If you feel as though you're still that caliber of a player, then you get on a roster and you win the job, because the only people that would be perceived to owe him, or he's earned, as you said, Marcellus, that starting position or thought process, he was released from that team. So I think it's bad advice to not get on a team and win a position on the team. And if you are still that guy, you win that starting job. I just think that it's dangerous to sit here and try to play the money game. And that's what this is coming down to. I think they're trying to get more money, because I don't know that once they see him play, he will have the leverage to be able to get a bigger contract than what he can based off of the unknowns of right now.
Yeah, the advice that he's not getting is about humility. And life, football will humble you at some point. And Cam Newton is going through his season of humility, and everyone's trying to tell him to act like he's still the MVP, Cam. So I do think it's bad advice. I do think there's some miles left on Cam's tires. But if he doesn't smother himself in humility, this thing could turn out even worse, and he could start out the 2020 season on the sidelines without a job. All right, we got to keep it rolling. Terrell Davis, a Hall of Fame running back, is just around the corner. We're going to ask him if Andy Dalton is a threat to Dak Prescott. Terrell Davis from his crib. Speak for yourself, presented by Hyundai. More after this.
That's my dog.
Welcome back to Speak for Yourself from the crib. Jason Whitlock, Marcellus Wiley. Speak for Yourself, presented to you by Hyundai. All right, let's roll up to Woodland Hills, California, just outside of L.A., and pull up at Terrell Davis's crib, John Elway's best friend, Hall of Famer, Super Bowl champion twice over. Terrell, get us rolling here. We're going to talk some Andy Dalton, Dak Prescott. Is Andy Dalton any sort of a threat to Dak Prescott in Dallas?
First of all, I'm mad at you guys with that graphic. Got me on the couch looking like I'm just lazy and soft. I'm upset with that graphic, but I'll get past that. And I'll answer your question here. Is he a threat to Dak Prescott? The answer is no, he's not a threat to Dak. But I think if you're the Cowboys, you're looking at a guy who's a seasoned veteran, who's played 8 or 9 years in the league. He's a proven starter in this league. And I think you need that for some depth. You need that for insurance purposes. You don't know what's going to happen with this contract. Dak might not report to camp on time. So it makes sense to me to bring him in to have some depth at that position in case you need to go a few games without your starting quarterback. But as far as thinking that Andy Dalton is somehow going to, beat out Dak Prescott, I don't see it. I know that over the years, Andy had some really good years, about 3 or 4 years ago. But I think we've seen his ceiling, and he's just, to me, an insurance purpose for the Dallas Cowboys. And I would be shocked if he beats Dak Prescott out in Dallas going into the 2020 season.
Oh, he's a threat, all right. But he's more of an idle threat, not an active threat. The difference being, he's not an active shooter, Remy on the Roof and Higher Learning. He's the old man in the scary movies. You ever go and watch the scary movie in the beginning, the old man sitting on the porch just looking like, okay, mess around if you want to, see what's going to happen. And look, we saw last year with Dak Prescott, had 5 games last year with more interceptions or didn't throw a touchdown. Mess around and have those games consecutively in a row. Oh, you know who's the most popular guy on a struggling team? The backup quarterback. So be careful, Dak.
Yeah, I think he's a bit of a threat too, Terrell, for the reason of if Dak misses the entire offseason and Andy Dalton gets to get established with the head coach, and if for some reason Andy Dalton ever gets on the field via injury because Dak sat out and he wins a game, that's going to plant a seed. Oh, we can win games with Andy Dalton. And if for some reason Dak's out and he misses 2 or 3 games and Andy Dalton goes 2 or 3-0 in that stretch, then he's a real threat. But let's keep it moving. Let's move to Antonio Brown, the former Raider, Pittsburgh Steeler, sat out almost all of the 2019 season. He's put out a picture over Instagram of himself playing in a Baltimore Ravens uniform. But I'm starting to have some real doubts if Antonio Brown's going to play at all this season. TD, do you think Antonio Brown remains out of football this season?
Wow. Jace, this is it's a tough one for me because I know that, and we talk about it, sometimes questionable character, talent will outweigh that. And if you're a team that needs a wide receiver of Antonio Brown's ability and skills, you might be desperate enough to say, I'm going to take a chance on him, especially if I can get a contract that keeps him at bay. That the first time he says something or does something, he's out of there. He's only playing for a bunch of incentives. You got enough teams who are starving who might want that explosive player in their locker room. But obviously all the legal stuff has to be taken care of. The commissioner has to be able to bless him to get him back into football. But if all those things happen, I would not be shocked to see Antonio Brown back in the NFL in 2020 because some desperate team is going to go get this man.
Man, I'm pretty much sold. It's a wrap for Antonio Brown, and it's unfortunate. And it's not even by the team-by-team breakdown. It's not even that. It's the umbrella of the NFL that has not even ruled yet on his suspension. And let's not act like the NFL before hasn't superseded through the judicial system and said, I don't care what they're going to do in court. This is what's going to happen in the NFL. We haven't even gotten there yet. And that's a problem if you're Antonio Brown. He's already had 2 workouts since he left New England. And both teams sat there like, we don't know what to do with him because there is no ruling. So in a world where you go after Mike Mayock, who's a general manager, who basically worked for the NFL because he worked for the NFL Network, and then you double down on that and go after Bob Kraft, bro, it doesn't take that much to just suggest that maybe he's not good for the NFL. Let's just say that.
Yeah, Marcellus, I'm going to follow up with you and bring Corona into this. Corona is one of the main reasons why the NFL now has an excuse not to finish their investigation with Antonio Brown. They have other higher priorities than cleaning up Antonio Brown's mess. And then, look, pro sports put up with a lot of BS. But I think the entire world, because of this coronavirus, is going to put up with just a teeny bit less BS. And I think character and what you bring into a locker room is going to just be 2% more important than it was before coronavirus. You have to trust the people you're working with. Eventually, we're going to go back into the TV studio, Marcellus. We have to trust each other that we're not doing stupid behavior and bringing corona into our workspace. I just think his character is going to catch up with him this offseason. I think there's a chance he misses. All right, now I
just need one.
Let me get to the money question. The main reason why we have you here, Terrell, is to talk about these running backs and running backs getting paid. Christian McCaffrey got paid this offseason in a major way. Derrick Henry got hit with the franchise tag, not a long-term deal. The Tennessee Titans say they're still trying to work out a long-term deal with Derrick Henry, but who deserved to get paid more this offseason? The NFL rushing king, Derrick Henry, or the do-it-all Marshall Faulk of the modern era, Christian McCaffrey?
You see, you threw that deserves to get paid more. You put the more on this thing, and I don't agree with that statement of more. Both of these guys need to get paid. And here's the deal, because they have two different style running backs, right? You got McCaffrey, who is your, not only a really good rusher, but he's also a great receiver out of the backfield. So he fits a different system, and you can use him differently. Where you got, Derrick Henry, you're talking about a physical running back who's only going to fit in a certain amount of schemes that teams are running the ball with. I mean, Seattle might be running that system right there. He fits well in what they're doing in Tennessee. So you got to look at a player and say what he's worth to you. And for the Tennessee Titans, he is worth a lot. So they should break the bank, make sure that he's taken care of, to make sure they have that running game. Everything they do in Tennessee is off of what this man brings to the table. So it's not about who deserves to get paid more. They both need to get paid. Chris McCaffrey got his money. Derrick Henry needs to get paid. King Henry, get paid. Pay the man.
Look, they both deserve to get paid, but who deserved it more? Christian McCaffrey. He's more versatile, and he has a smaller target area. We all know about big running backs. Shoot, I played running back my entire career until I got to the league. Yeah. And one thing I witnessed from all the big running backs, TD, I got film too, it's real. All the big running backs I know, when they fall off the cliff with a jetpack. I mean, it happens like that. So for Christian McCaffrey, there's an evolution. He can become a pass catcher. Hey, we can move him to slot receiver. Let him be Wes Welker 2.0 or something like that. Kind of how the cornerback goes to safety. There is no shifting Derrick Henry once he hits that wall. It's a wrap. It's going to happen, and it's going to be sudden. So, you got to pay Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, I've gone back and forth on this. Love them both. Today, and this is where I feel today, I'm going to lean into Derrick Henry. And I say that because again, 2nd and 5 is a quarterback's best friend. That is how you protect a quarterback. You line him up 2nd and 5. We can sit here. Christian McCaffrey's a great receiver, and that's going to be a nice weapon for Teddy Bridgewater. But Derrick Henry is a 2nd and 5 machine. He's going to get you 4 or 5 yards on first down and put you in great position as a play caller and as a quarterback. And so he carried his team to the playoffs and some playoff upsets. So who deserved it more? I would say Derrick Henry. He made Ryan Tannehill what he is. Yeah. You go look at Christian McCaffrey, Cam Newton, Kyle Allen, all that last year. Great numbers from Christian McCaffrey. And I'm not putting him down. I love the kid. He's a modern-day Marshall Faulk. But I'm going to lean today a bit more into Derrick Henry. TD, he's not quite Derrick Henry. He's not quite Terrell Davis because, you took the greatest player of all time, John Elway, and elevated him even higher. Derrick Henry hasn't done that quite yet. But you're a great analyst for the NFL Network. We'd love to have you back. Love your work. Marcellus, real quick, TD to me kind of looks like Fab Five Freddy from Yo MTV Rap. You remember Fab Five Freddy?
Hell yeah.
Fab Five Freddy.
He does. Look at 80s background,
boy. Yeah. I guess, hold on, who's the big guy? It was Dr. Dre. I guess I would be Dr. Dre.
Dre. And Ed Lover.
Dr. Dre and Ed Lover. Marcellus. Yeah. Yo, MTV speaks for itself.
Yeah, they should do that.
From the crib, Uncle Jimmy's around the corner. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Speak for Yourself. From the crib, Jason Whitlock, Marcellus Wiley. Time to head out to Uncle Jimmy's crib to get his thoughts on Jordan Love.
You know?
All right, what do you think about Jordan Love and him being potentially the next Patrick Mahomes?
I don't know whether or not he going to be the next Patrick Mahomes, but I can tell you this. Aaron Rodgers is on his way to being the next Jason Whitlock. Okay?
What is that?
In other words, look here, man. Aaron Rodgers will be remembered just like you was in Kansas City. Your body of work will speak for itself, okay? You understand what I'm saying? In other words, you're going to be remembered as being a couple of bungaholios. That's what it's going to be. That's going to be your body of work. That's going to be what you're remembered for being, a bungaholio. That's it.
Oh, a bungaholio.
Thank you, Uncle Jimmy.